welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another episode of Tech Girl Thursdays. Today I'm here with Sejal, and we are going to be talking about her experiences in tech, and I'm so excited to have her on today. So thank you so much, Sejal, for joining me on this Zoom call. Can you give a short intro about yourself and your background, interests, and hobbies?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. My name is Sejal Parmar. I currently study computer science in the BS-MCS program at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I did my undergrad in 3 years, did an applied stats minor at that time too, and now like my senior year is my master's year, so super excited about that. As far as some of my background and experience goes, I've done 5 software engineering internships and 1 quant trading internship, which we can probably talk about later. And I'll be starting full-time at Robinhood later in probably around June or July 2021. So really excited about that. And when I'm not doing anything that's tech related, I love cooking. Absolutely love it. I just recently for Christmas, we made like a big fancy dinner and that was really fun. And I also really love to bake. So there's that in terms of like my foodie side. And then I used to play badminton, so still love doing that.
How did you first get into the tech field?
This is going to sound kind of weird, but when I was in 7th grade, that movie, The Internship, came out, and it was about these 2 guys who tried to get like a Google internship, even though they were like way beyond college. So they enrolled in like some online university to apply from there. But even just seeing like tech portrayed in that movie, that was the first time I really understood like what is big tech like in comparison to just like tech overall. And I'd always been interested in tech kind of, but I was also at that point in my life dead set on medicine. Like I wanted to do reconstructive surgery. That's what I was going to do. So like throughout high school, I started exploring technology, tried to learn like some basic web dev, but at the same time, I was doing like mini medical school and things like that. So not really exploring it too much. But then around my junior year of high school, I got the opportunity to intern at Fermi National Accelerator Lab. And there I was doing software engineering. Didn't really have much experience with it, was basically just doing very basic web dev, but it was more of like an exploratory high school internship where they also taught you some basic fundamentals as well. And I got to see how tech is used on like the science side in terms of like high performance computing and all of that. So it was super interesting. And then from there, I was just kind of hooked. And I did Girls Who Code as well in high school. I did the club, not the summer immersion program, just because by the time the summer immersion program came around, I had already like dove headfirst into tech. And at that point, I wasn't completely a beginner anymore. So from there, I also took some classes at a local community college since I couldn't fit in my schedule. And then when college apps came around, I just applied computer science everywhere instead of medicine. And I know my mom was probably a little bit disappointed, but she's happy with me now. So it's all in the past.
Yes, kind of moving into college. So you applied for computer science and you ended up going to UIUC.
Mm-hmm.
So how has that experience been studying computer science at UIUC?
I absolutely love U of I. I was definitely debating between some of the other like top CS schools as well, but then what really made my decision was U of I was first of all in-state. So in comparison to going to some of the other schools I was considering going to, it was like half the tuition. Also, U of I has this really cool thing that if you apply computer science engineering, you can apply into their 5th year program. So you can get a whole master's just tacked on by doing 1 extra year. And if you come in with a lot of credits or anything like that, you can probably finish your undergrad in 3 years. I don't recommend it after going through it. It's a lot of work and you really don't have as much time as you wish you could have had to just like, enjoy college. But in general, like just having that extra year to explore, go deeper in things that are interesting. I feel like that's super crucial. And that was my big tipping point in terms of joining U of I. And I will say, as far as like talking to some of my other friends at other schools, one thing I really like about U of I, it's a very collaborative atmosphere. So a lot of times when you feel like you're in CS, like I know people joke that like business students can be snakes or like CS students can be snakes or whatever, but in general, I've found that U of I, like it's a very team-based atmosphere. You have like required team projects, things like that. So you're constantly working with other people. But the biggest draw there is our curriculum is not like very theory-based, it's very application-based. So if you're looking to like go into deep research, you can still get that by talking to professors and going into research immediately. But if you're interested in something like more industry applicable, or like learning something not for like the deep mathematical fundamentals underneath, but just like how can I use this and apply it to bigger problems and start working with it, we have classes that do that too. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds. And when you get past the core requirements, which honestly there aren't too many, it's just like very basic fundamentals that you need to do. Like I think it's intro to CS, then you have like data structures, discrete math, um, what else? Like numerical methods, algorithms, like some of those basic ones. Then it's a choose your own adventure. So you have like a bunch of different elective credits and you get to choose what sounds interesting to you and really build your degree and your experience based off of what is interesting to you. And I'm the type of person who hates having to take things that I have no interest in. So this was like perfect for me.
I love how you mentioned collaborative atmosphere because that's so important. Like in industry and everything, you're always working with other people, and I think that's one of it's a very like underrated skill, I feel, of
Mm-hmm.
computer science. A lot of people focus on the technical aspects of like, oh, Python, Java, C or something, but the collaborativeness of it is like super critical.
I feel like when you're working in industry, like this is something that you really only get when you do different internships and get that experience by actually just working. But the people you work with aren't always going to think in the same ways as you. They're not going to be educated in the same ways as you. Like some people have very classical training that's very theory based. Some people are very application based. Some people will approach a problem in a completely different way than you. But learning how to take all these different opinions and come together and create a solution is going to be crucial at the end of the day because that's what you're doing every day. And I also feel like one thing that I liked about U of I in general is there's so many multidisciplinary experiences you can take advantage of. So that's something I really focused on a lot, getting out of just like that pure CS bubble where I'm not just coding all day, but learning how other people think as well and how to work with people who don't have a technical background, I think is super important for a software engineer.
What's like been your favorite class so far, either undergrad or master's?
That's difficult. I feel like there's a couple that really stand out. I really liked applied machine learning just because the class was super interesting and the professor was just like an absolute powerhouse. David Forsyth taught that class and he's absolutely amazing. I also really liked, of all classes, it was journalism 460. So it was like intro to data visualization. And I'm not like the biggest person in terms of like visualization. I am very much a backend engineer. I like designing in terms of aesthetics, like I like art, but when it comes to front end development, you couldn't pay me enough to do front end just because I'm not the most detail oriented person. That's something I realized as I come into college. Like I always thought I was super detail oriented. And then as I come into college, I realized that I can be if I force myself to be, but I really love strategic thinking and high level picture. And like trying to spend 2 hours trying to like fix some small like aesthetic thing would drive me insane. So I did one front end internship and after that I've just been back end completely. But at the same time, data visualization was super interesting just because it made me think about like how are users really going to interact with things. A lot of times, especially as a backend engineer, you don't really think about the users as much. You think about how to create an elegant solution to solve your problem or make some like tricky bit of code work pretty or things like that, but you don't always think about like how is, especially like I think from the student perspective you don't think about it as much, but of how does this directly correlate to the user or how can I build a better experience for the user. And that also, after taking that class, it kind of got me a little bit interested in like product management as well. So even though I'll be a backend engineer starting full-time, that is something that I would consider doing like sometime in the future just because that whole like user experience and like user side of things is like a whole different ball game, I feel. So like when you're working on products, I also feel like different products have different emphasis. Like sometimes you're working on a very user-centric product and they're like the user um, like idea is going to be there. But then sometimes when you're working on a product that's just so disconnected from the user, it might be like an internal tool or things like that. It's really easy to forget. So it's definitely a perspective that I would encourage like any budding software engineer, anyone to start considering early on because it's so easy to get siloed into just learning what you need to learn and not understand like what's beyond just your scope of work. And to be someone who's really effective, either as a software engineer, product manager, or even anything, like even if you're interested in entrepreneurship, you want to launch your own startup, you still need to understand like how do different pieces fit together and what's like, how does it all relate together? So that big picture thinking is super important. Like the age old question, do you go into technical depth of like what exactly you're working on or is it more of like a breadth approach? I feel like as a software engineer, like technical depth is one thing if you've been on a team for a long time, but I also feel like breadth is super important because like half the times I feel like you're a jack of all trades. You have to be in an ideal world, you'd be a jack of all trades, master of all, but that's like really hard to do in theory,
Yeah.
in like actual practice. So a lot of times it's more of you need to be able to be flexible. And I feel like being adaptable and being able to jump from one thing to another whenever you need to, I feel like is the most important thing whenever you're just working on a project, because that's how you create impact, especially if you're working for a startup or a smaller team. You're not going to have like the resources in the sense of like, oh, this person's going to be a Java expert. You might have to wear multiple hats to get the job done. So I feel like in that sense, breadth is super important. But granted, you can't get anything done if you don't have the depth to do it. So yeah, there's always that balance there, or the
Yeah.
trade-off.
Something kind of connected is just knowing how to learn something on the job, because I mean, I think with any technical field, there's you're never going to know everything that
Hmm.
happens in the field, and the field is always constantly changing as well.
Let me know if you feel the same way, but I genuinely feel like a lot of times in college, especially, like you're learning to learn, but most of the stuff you learn in college doesn't apply to what you actually do in the real world. And then
Yeah.
it's almost like you're learning everything from scratch again. Like you have the technical capability and you know how logic works, and then everything else is just learned on the job. Like I know like I think when it comes to technologies, you don't always cover everything in school. Like you'll cover what your core competencies are, but you're not going to cover like how to use Kafka. Or if you don't take a specific distributed systems class, you won't know like how does distributed computing work or anything like that. So a lot of times it's just learning on the job and coming in, and the first 6 months of working, from what I've heard from my friends who've graduated, is just like training all over again. Like you're not feeling like you're really making true impact until like almost a full year into the job, just because it's a time to learn everything all over again.
Yeah, there's just like so much that you don't learn in school. Like you learn the basic concepts like data structures at like a high level, but like
Hmm.
I feel like applying that, and like even like something like GitHub. It's very, I feel like GitHub in school is very different from GitHub in industry. Like
Hmm.
just how people use it, because in industry you're going to run into like merge conflicts, and like there's tons of people working on the same thing, but
You might need to cherry pick or something. And like
yeah.
I didn't even know that cherry pick was a thing until I like interned.
Yeah, yeah. Literally all these terms kind of just popped up in internships. So, yeah, I definitely agree. I've seen that too. Just there's kind of this disconnect between school and industry.
I know
Yeah.
a lot of the organizations that like I'm a huge proponent for. So like I'm very involved in terms of Built by Girls, Girls Who Code, pretty much a lot of these like women in tech and women in STEM initiatives. So a lot of times what we try to do is hold workshops. And I know it's not going to be the best. It's just us trying to give whatever knowledge we may have picked up in an internship. And we're definitely not experts, but it's definitely a better start than just trying to learn it from scratch or waiting for until like a freshman encounters it in an internship.
Yeah.
So I know there's also like some Git programming games online. Like you can search Git game, and it's like a game that teaches you how to use different aspects of Git, which is really interesting.
Oh, no way. Oh my
Hmm.
God, I'm gonna have to look at that after this call. I had no idea that existed. That's so
Hmm.
cool. It's really nice seeing all these different orgs having like different programs to just like teach people about this. I think like more of them are popping up, which I think is really cool. And then they're also getting more creative, like a GitHub game. Like that's so cool. You've had 5 different software engineering internships in the past. So could you go into each
Hmm.
one of them and describe like what type of work you were doing?
We can start all the way to spring semester freshman year when I worked at Capital One in Research Park. So U of I has this other really cool thing called Research Park, where a lot of companies have like small offices or offshoot branch locations that are just off campus. So like you can work there part-time while still studying, and it's really cool in that sense, because like how often are you going to get an opportunity to do internships during the school year without having to actually leave for the semester? So I love Research Park. If anyone watching this does go to U of I, huge proponent of it, definitely get involved there. They also have a really cool entrepreneurship hub, so check it out. But at Capital One, that was my front end internship. So it was an internship specifically made for freshmen. I was working more on this platform based in Angular that did like credit card validation, and like the when you have like inserts in your credit card and statements that come in your credit card, like how to validate that. So that was all in Angular, Sassy, and TypeScript, if I remember correctly. And what I realized from it is I didn't hate web dev as much as I thought I would. I thought I would absolutely hate it, but I kind of enjoyed it. But at the same time, I didn't think it was really the right area of expertise for me. I feel like a lot of freshmen come in wanting to do machine learning and AI because it sounds like a sexy buzzword, but they have no idea what it is and how much math and stats is actually involved. And then they see that and suddenly like balk from it. But like I was also one of those people who thought it was super cool and wanted to learn more about it. So from there, I realized front end wasn't really the thing for me. I didn't think it was. I could do it if I had to, but like my interests weren't really there. And then from there, I worked at JP Morgan over the summer between freshman and sophomore year. And at JP Morgan, I worked on basically taking this giant monolithic application and then chunking it out into microservices, as well as this data pipeline that basically like took data from different lines of businesses, made it all like form standardized, and then outputted it to wherever it needed to go. That's like a very high level overview. But I think something that was pretty cool about that is, I think if I remember correctly, they might have filed a patent for it, but that's pretty cool because it was like a new tech we were working with. But in general, it was more of a backend experience and it was in Java. And I thought it was pretty interesting learning how like REST APIs and all of that worked. But I didn't love it in the sense that I think I wanted something that was going to be less like working with legacy code and more something that's going to be snappy, something that I could build from the ground up. So after that, I interned at Jump Trading in the spring semester of my sophomore year. So that was also in Research Park. There, I worked on creating like a trading risk regression suite. So that was all in C++. I honestly liked working in C++. I think if you ask me like my favorite programming languages, I like working in like C++ and then Python. So like very opposite ends of the spectrum, but I love the power C++ gives in terms of like the flexibility you have. And I love Python because um, I was one of those kids who stayed interested in ML and AI and ended up doing more and more classes and more specializations in it. So Python made my life easy. So I really liked that. But doing the jump trading internship, one thing I really liked was I enjoyed working for trading firms. I thought that intersection between finance and tech was super interesting. And I liked how fast paced it moved. Like I thought I hadn't done a big tech internship at this point, but I thought like this must be what big tech is like. Big tech must move even faster. And then after that, I went to Facebook in the summer between my sophomore and junior year. And at Facebook, I was working on their ad, like in their ad events info team. So working on their main ads data pipeline as a software engineer. So this is all in Python. It was a lot of like taking old legacy code, understanding what it did, and then rewriting it in a way that would be a lot cleaner. So again, I thought the work was interesting. I really appreciated, first of all, like Facebook has insane perks. So like that was really nice. Actually living in Mountain View and then working in their Menlo Park HQ location, I really enjoyed that. But at the same time, they gave a lot of power and a lot of influence to just one intern. And I appreciated that they gave me that much responsibility because it felt like what I was doing actually made impact. I think the only downside here was I was looking for something where I could really build something up from scratch. And while I was building a new solution, a lot of it was still like taking legacy code and redoing that rather than kind of doing something that's new or innovative. So after Facebook, we had 1,000 interns in just Menlo Park. So I was thinking maybe I want to try something smaller. But I went back to Jump actually for the fall semester of my junior year, just because I signed for like a 2-semester internship, spring, fall. And this time, instead of working in C++, I was actually working in Python. So I was working on their cryptocurrency team in terms of like creating different ways to connect to different exchanges. And that was a really interesting project because I felt like after working one semester there on an actual project and then doing more of like ticket type work my second semester there, it was interesting to see how things actually worked in terms of like if you're a full-time employee, how do you take tickets and just work on them, and what does that flow look like rather than having a specific intern project. And then I also got to see a different side of jump trading that I hadn't seen before in terms of being more on that high level side instead of working very low level in terms of like in their trading regression suites or things like that. So really enjoyed that as well. But then I was thinking maybe I want to try something that's actually on the trading side. So then the summer between junior and senior year, I went to IMC Trading as a quant trading intern. And there I worked on a project that basically looked at different metrics for volatility and did some work around that. Can't go into too much detail, obviously, but it was a really interesting project because it was more research based than anything I've ever done. I feel like most of my projects in the past have been very much you're told what the specs are, you're told what is the criteria for success. and you're told like, what do you need to accomplish by the end of the summer? What are your main milestones? But here it was very open-ended of like, what can you explore? Where are you going to take this project? And working very closely with your mentor to do that. So completely different ballgame, very interesting work. But then for full time, I was thinking either product management or software engineering. I think I knew if I did software engineering, I didn't really want to go to a big firm anymore. I wanted to go somewhere that was smaller. So I was looking at startups for if I did software engineering. And then I was also looking at places that were fintechs because I realized that I really love working in this intersection of finance and tech. So I really wanted to work for a fintech if I went into software engineering after grad. Also interviewed like the previous year, I had interviewed and gotten offers for like product management. Like the same year for I was looking for getting that IMC offer. I also had offers for product management from places like big tech companies for product management, as well as like big three consulting. I had like business consulting offers there. So I was looking around there as well, but then decided I wanted to try that IMC offer just because it kept me technical and it kept me related to what I was doing directly in terms of my major. And it made me actually use my stats minor because a lot of it was very statistics based or even a little bit more math based than anything I've done before. Honestly, it was more of like a data science role more than anything I've done in the past. So I thought it was super interesting. But then when it came to full-time recruitment, I ended up signing with Robinhood just because, first of all, I trade actively on Robinhood. So like I've been using Robinhood since 2018. Then I had trade restrictions on me for a while because I was working for trading firms. But then they've opened up again. So my portfolio is active again now. But I love trading on Robinhood. And then when I was doing my product management interviews, it's funny because whenever they would ask me the question of like, let's talk about your favorite product and how we can improve it. The product I would talk about was Robinhood. And now I had an offer for Robinhood and I was still in the prospects of like getting other offers in product management. But then I think I realized since I like the product and I genuinely believe in the mission of Robinhood, it made sense to start my career there. And then we can see where it goes from there. I know Robinhood is a bunch of great like product management roles as well. So possibly consider pivoting later on. But right now, I signed as a backend engineer, and I'm super excited because first of all, it's a system that like while it is in place, there's a lot of areas for improvement, room for growth, and they're a startup, so they're doing so many interesting things right now and scaling really fast. So I feel like as a backend engineer, there's so many interesting problems to solve, and I won't get bored because that's something that's really important to me. Not getting bored, I get bored very easily. So that's something that I really appreciate about Robinhood. And everyone was super friendly when I talked to them. So excited definitely for that. But then in terms of like work experience that isn't exactly an internship, I also was with Illinois Business Consulting for 3 years. So started as a consultant, then moved through the ranks, got to project manager, and then moved up to senior manager, which is like the highest level in terms of you managing projects. So that was all like completely non-technical. And one thing I really appreciated about IBC was the fact that when you're working in IBC, you're working with people from all across the university. So business majors, people in LAS, people in ACEs, things like that. And you get to really understand how other people work and see perspectives you normally don't see in tech. Because I feel like, yes, in tech, we all come from different backgrounds, but at the same time, we think in a very similar engineer type way. So it's very interesting working with non-engineers and also just getting that experience. And I love seeing like, how do you build relationships from the ground up and seeing like a lot of people that I worked with them also move up through the ranks and see the growth that they had. So that was super rewarding for me. And then this last semester, since this is my last semester of college, I did leave IBC, but I'm taking on a new position with the Disruption Lab at U of I, which is like almost like IBC for software engineering projects. It's like all completely technical, but since I'm the operations director, it'll be more of like project oversight and everything in terms of like working with corporate clients, making sure projects are going to as planned, scoping, helping scope out like technical requirements, documents, kind of being like in the engineering management side of things instead of like the business management, which I was doing in IBC. So I feel like with all these experiences combined, it gave like a really strong experience, not just in software engineering, but also helping me explore and figure out what I wanted to do. Because a lot of times when you go back to the same company, I feel like in internships, it's almost like a no strings attached relationship where you can choose to come back, you can choose not to. But I genuinely believe that for internships, you should hop around, try different places, figure out what you really want, because when you start full time, you're not going to be able to hop around as easily if you don't like something. So it's better to figure that out earlier on rather than just waiting until full time to do it.
First of all, congrats on Robinhood, and
Thank
it
you.
sounds like a really great fit for you just because you've been like using Robinhood for a while now. And it's funny that you like use that as an example in your product management interviews. So I feel like there's like so many different like like connections there. So it sounds
Mhm.
It sounds like a really great opportunity. It's interesting seeing like kind of the growth and the journey that you went through with all of the different internships, kind of like, starting from one place and then it's like, oh, I like this, I don't like this, kind of like figuring out like what your preferences are um, based on each new internship. And I think that really shows the power of doing so many internships, just like figuring out what you like, what you don't like whether it's like size of the company
Hmm.
culture, the actual work that you're doing, like if it has an impact or not. I think that's super important. So I totally agree with like the advice that you were giving, like doing internships, like not sticking with one company. That's like the best thing that you can do. Just like kind of explore around, try different things out to see what you actually enjoy. They all sound like really, really cool experiences though.
They were all amazing. I absolutely loved each and every one of them. I feel like when I was saying like likes and dislikes, I was being super nitpicky since each of them, like I got to work with such amazing people. Every mentor I've had so far has been super helpful. And I really appreciate that they like personally took the time out to help me grow and figure out what I was best at and where my areas of improvement are as well. And then I could carry that on and try to see that growth. So for example, coming into like my JP Morgan internship, I got some feedback there. And then going into my next internship at Jump, I told them the feedback I had at JP Morgan so they could also keep tracking my progress. So then through each internship, I could keep seeing how I was growing and making sure I had like intentional plans for growth. I feel like in internships, a lot of times you go in, you're excited, but you don't really think about like, what do you plan on getting out of this? It's more just like, hey, I have a job now. So being intentional about like your own growth, I feel like is super important just because it helps you figure out like where are your strengths and weaknesses and how can you become the best version of you, whether it's in like personal connections and like your relationship aspect or even in like your technical aspect.
Like, what's your favorite part about computer science? And then what's like the hardest part about it?
Favorite part, I think, would be just the sheer breadth of CS. Like, as we mentioned earlier when we were talking, AP Java is not CS. CS, there's so many things you can do with it. Like, literally any field you can think of or fathom, you can apply computer science to it. And I think that's beautiful. Like, if I ever get bored of something right now, there's so many things I could hop to without leaving the field just because there's so many different things you can learn in different aspects of it, like AR, VR, artificial intelligence, robotics, anything, honestly, like you can jump around. And there's so many different ways that you can make an impact with computer science. So a lot of times you're working in a job and you feel like you're only really making the rich richer, or sometimes you're only really affecting a small group of people. But a lot of times when you're working with technology, whether it's you doing research for advancements in tech or even just working as a software engineer, building a product out for a user base, you are directly impacting people's lives. And I think that impact is really hard to find in a lot of places. And I know people joke that like CS is gentrified or things like that, but there's enough engineers out there that aren't jaded yet who still believe in the mission that they are working for, that really do want to help people and really bring their initiatives forward, that there is that power that you can truly do that with CS. And I think that aspect of it and how flexible and adaptable CS is my absolute favorite part about it and what I think really draws me to the field in general. Now, the hardest part is, I think, dealing with discouragement and imposter syndrome. Like we all talk about it, a lot of times you'll feel like you're not the best engineer in the room, or you'll be working with so many accomplished people that you'll wonder like, do I truly belong here? Do I deserve to be here? Do I fit in? And dealing with all of that and making yourself realize that you are good enough. You don't have to be like leak cold platinum or whatever it is, or like have all the fancy trophies or do coding competitions or fit even like a specific stereotype to be in computer science. You don't have to be a software engineer to be related to technology or interested in it. And you don't have to prove to anyone that you know what you're doing, in the sense that, like, yes, you have to interview, but you shouldn't feel like the need to always like put that foot out there or portray that version of yourself out there as if like you are unbreakable, because everyone out there is going to be dealing with the same things and like you're not alone in that. And when you're bogged down with everything going on, even like especially in a pandemic, it's easy to forget that. So I think that's the hardest part about CS, because it's so big. There's so much you never will learn and so much you want to learn and will never get to, and that's okay. It's okay not to know everything, and it's not easy to come to terms with, but at the end of the day, you'll be fine, even if you don't know every little aspect of every little thing.
Yeah, even diving into imposter syndrome, it's Yeah, it's hard. Just like yeah, there's all these like stereotypes, I guess, which still need to be completely dismantled, but
Mm-hmm.
just I think yeah, it's something that everyone I think goes through at some point in their tech career, just imposter syndrome and do I really belong here? Is this like the right thing for me? Do you have any like advice on like how to deal with imposter syndrome?
I think a lot of it comes down to surrounding yourself with the right people. Like if you're around people who are constantly competitive or constantly trying to bring you down to build themselves back up, then you're not around the right people. And yes, there will be people like that. That's going to be the same in any field. But at the same time, imposter syndrome really dials down to you not having that confidence in yourself. And confidence in yourself is really hard to build. It's easy to fake, it's easy to project. But sometimes I also do believe in like fake it till you make it. One thing that I really learned and what helped me was once it clicked that no one else really cares about what I'm doing or like is not going to give extra thought to me for doing something. I think a lot of social anxiety or just like imposter syndrome in general helped clear it up a lot because I realized that if I'm living my life, no one's really going to actually have an opinion on it. It's just more fabricated in my mind, having like a self centric view. But at the same time, when it comes to imposter syndrome, like you have to be okay with understanding that you're not going to always be the smartest in the room, and that's okay. Like you don't have to be the best just to prove to people that you belong there or that you deserve to have the seat at the table. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, especially in the beginning classes of CS when like we talked about how your first couple classes are discouraging until you have that click, that epiphany, it's not going to be easy. And CS isn't an easy field. Like it's not going to be an easy 4 years. You're going to really struggle. You're going to be frustrated. You might even cry, but you'll get through it. You'll get that degree. You're going to be fine and you'll be able to move on from that. But you're not, there's always going to be someone out there who's better than you. And once I feel like when you start accepting that, and understanding that just because you're not the best doesn't mean you don't deserve to be there. I think that's where you can start building up your own confidence in yourself. And honestly, even doing side projects helps. Like taking an idea that you think is interesting and building it out, making it a reality, makes you feel like you're bringing power to yourself and that you really did that and you can do more than what you thought was capable.
So you've been studying in a technical major, done technical internships, like working in tech. So what has your experience been like as a woman in tech?
I think one of the reasons why I'm so involved in like women in tech and women in STEM initiatives, especially from like early ages, is because right now I feel like we can do so much better. There's been too many times where I've been like the only woman in the room, only woman in the conference room, only woman on the project, things like that. But at the same time, I feel like we are genuinely doing better than it was before. I know I was looking at stats because this is just really interesting to me, but I think in like the 1970s, the disparity between women and men in tech was pretty much equal. Like it was almost 50-50. And then for some reason, like after that, it died down where it was disproportionately low for women to be in tech. And I think that's when like that whole like, oh, if you're in tech, you're usually like a nerd or a geek, and like women felt like they didn't fit in. That's when it really played in. But in general, a lot of the companies that I've worked with have been really good in terms of like trying to promote more women in STEM. So it really comes down to just getting people to really enter the field now. But at the same time, one thing I have seen is like at U of I think we had a pretty decent ratio when I first entered freshman year. But by the time you get to junior, senior year, that ratio isn't as good as it was before because a lot of women either transfer out, move to different schools, move to different majors, things like that. But you don't have as many women in tech after. So I think beyond just getting women in tech, I feel like retention in tech is like the next hurdle that we really need to come over. Either retention in the major or also just getting strong female role models up into higher levels of different companies. A lot of times people may leave to start a family, they might have other personal reasons, but we don't have as many strong women role models. And I think that's one thing I really pointed in my internships. Like I'd always try to find someone who almost like resembled me, someone I could see myself becoming at some point and reaching out to them. And a lot of times people I feel like are scared to reach out just because it feels awkward to reach out to someone who's so much more senior than you as an intern. But like as a woman in tech, like women should build other women up. Like we're all in this together, to quote High School Musical. But I would definitely encourage like anyone doing any internship, like reach out to people who are higher up in the company or even just have been there a long time because there's so much you can learn from them. And it's always nice to have like a mentor or a friend in different levels or in different areas, because you can just have that support of, hey, you do belong. And I think that also helps with that imposter syndrome. But to sum it up, I know I ramble a lot and talk a lot, but we're doing better than it was before. It's still not perfect. We have a long way to go. And I'm excited to help be one of the people to usher that in, because that's like my passion project.
Getting more women engaged in the field. Recently, like with the introduction of like women in tech organizations and clubs and different programs to like kind of introduce women more into the field. But retention is something that we totally need to work on, because there definitely aren't enough like female role models in industry or research, like C-suite positions, in these like technical roles. Do you have like any thoughts on like what we can do for better retention of women in tech?
In college specifically, there's a lot of like women in tech clubs, but at the same time, I don't know if it's like a support thing where not everyone's going to have the same level of support. Like if we dive into, I would want to dive into the demographics of it to understand, like, out of the women who are dropping, who are the people staying versus dropping, and then see if there's any correlation there or anything we can do in terms of like, is it a support issue? Are people not feeling like they have enough support to get through what they need to do? Or is it just like an interest issue, things like that? Have you not found your spark yet in tech? So then you can understand, like, is it something that we need to do more like exploratory courses in the beginning to help people find like what is interesting in tech overall and where they should really tailor their next courses for? Or is it just we need to do better about making people feel like they do belong or that they have the resources they need to succeed? So I think on the college level, that's where it really dives down into. On the industry level, like, again, data is going to be key in any of these insights, trying to figure out like where are the correlations. But is it more of an issue of like people are leaving because they're not getting promoted? Is it an issue of people want to leave to start a family and then don't have the time to dedicate to a bigger role? But one thing that one of my mentors at JP Morgan said to me that really stood out is a lot of times women, before moving into a big role, feel like they have to know 100% of the domain to feel comfortable moving up. Whereas a lot of times their male counterpart may only know like 30 to 50%, but be willing to just jump in and learn on the job and take the challenge. So is it really diving in there? Like, are women not jumping at promotions that are available or not wanting to move up because they feel like they're not ready for it? Whereas like their male counterpart is just jumping into the challenge? Or is it something where they aren't feeling the support they need to move up, or they don't have the time to do it anymore because they're juggling too many other things? So I feel like there's so many different factors that might come into play, and it's definitely something to look into. A lot of companies I know, like big tech firms especially, have been doing a lot of work with their HR departments in terms of trying to figure out like where is this lying. And I think that's definitely the right place to start understanding where are the key issues and then moving forward from there. But I also feel like when you have more solid role models in the industry, then young girls have someone to look up to, and that might get them interested in tech. So retention also plays hand in hand in terms of engagement and getting younger people to be interested because they see someone like themselves and see where they could possibly be in the future.
So, I mean, you're part of some like CS orgs on campus and outside of campus. So, like, how have those experiences been and what have you learned from them?
I started by being a part of SWE, Society of Women Engineers, and I met a lot of really cool people through that. Got to be a chair for their team tech, and we basically got to create a project with Caterpillar that debuted in our engineering open house. So that was pretty cool. And then from there, I've been like aligned with women in computer science, but my big passion project has been working with Built by Girls. So in May 2019, Built by Girls started doing like their own college clubs as well. So we started one at U of I. So my friend and I right now are co-presidents. This last year, I was the corporate chair, working mostly in terms of bringing in corporate connections, talking to people who I know, because I feel like networking is super important to me. And then just starting events that are partnered with companies at U of I. So that was a really cool opportunity just because like we got to really not only booster my own personal network, but at the same time meet so many other women who aren't even in like computer science specifically. So Built by Girls isn't really focused just on women in computer science at U of I. We're open to everyone. So it was really cool to see people who are like in business or in like crop sciences or anything really come in and kind of get an interest in tech and get to do something with tech. And then this year, what we're doing is actually having a project summit for the spring semester. So we've already closed apps for joining, but we've assigned the groups and they're working on the project proposals. And then we have industry mentors that I've sourced that we will basically do mentor matching with. So they can rank what their preferences are in terms of the project proposal submitted, and then we'll mentor match. So each team has a mentor in the industry assigned to them, and they'll meet with their mentor probably once or twice every month and get to work on this project throughout the whole semester. And then at the end of the semester, we'll do a project summit. They can go and actually present what their work is. We might let them invite their parents, their teachers, things like that. And they can do a presentation on what they've been working on and showcase what their work has been for the semester. So it's a great way to get some technical experience as well as just get a side project on your resume while getting to actually increase your own network because you're meeting all these industry mentors. So very, very excited about that. A lot of the times when I'm getting involved in campus, it's more of seeing like, where can I create impact and help other people? At this point in like my college career, I really enjoy like mentoring people and being someone who can be a resource. So even when I know I mentioned like my non-technical clubs earlier, like Illinois Business Consulting and now Disruption Lab, but like being super involved with Illinois Business Consulting, I would hold office hours that were just open so anyone could stop by and talk about literally anything. So then we would talk a lot about career advice, sometimes just about life, things like that. But just being open and being willing to be there for anyone who needs help or wants to just chat, I think was really rewarding throughout college because you get to meet so many different people and then make an impact in small ways. But even beyond impact, it's just nice to be able to help people explore technology overall.
Yeah, that the Built by Girls program, that sounds so cool. I I wish there were more opportunities like that, but it like just like I mean you get to work on like a technical project and then mentorship and like meeting others, working in a team and
Yeah,
oh,
it's
it
been a
just
lot
sounds
of planning on our end because it's
yeah,
not like a standardized program. So I
right.
don't think like other Built by Girls clubs and other universities have done it, but it's something like we really wanted to do. So we've been planning it since like last summer. And now
Oh
it's
wow.
like at that point where it's coming into fruition. So it's really
Yeah.
exciting.
That's so exciting. Like an idea that you've been planning for so long and then it's like finally coming together. Oh, that's the best
Hmm.
part. And yeah, you were talking about non-technical clubs as well, so like business consulting. Like how have those also helped you?
It's surprising, but every technical interview I've had, someone's asked me about my non-technical experiences just because it's something that's unique. But I think the biggest thing that I got of it was learning how to work with people. A lot of times when you're doing technical projects, like you know your stuff when it comes to technical projects. You know how to do that piece of code or how to work with that specific technology. But 99% of the time, you're not going to be working alone. And a lot of times you're going to be interfacing with people who might be like in accounting or in finance or like working across your company with HR or something like that. And you're not going to always just be talking to people who are just engineers. And I think that's where working in IBC and like a bunch of these other organizations really came in clutch because it taught me how to think in ways that aren't just like your typical traditional engineering mindset. And understanding that and how to work with people who don't think the same way I do, I think really helped me in terms of like conflict management and a lot of these more soft skills that you don't necessarily pick up as a technical major.
Yeah, the soft skills are really important. So that's really, really good. I think those are like great experiences and clubs to be a part of in order to try and get that. It's interesting just like kind of this dichotomy of like CS clubs and non-CS clubs and like there's still so much to gain from both of them and like doing both of them together. Whether it's like technical skills or soft skills. So that's really cool.
I know some people are like CS snobs or like CS purists, where all you do is just in that tech bubble. But it's nice to get out of it sometimes. And I think that's where a lot of these different clubs come in handy. I feel like my philosophy is do one club, if you're going to choose three clubs, do one related to your major, one unrelated to your major that's still kind of professional, and then one that's just completely for fun.
Yeah.
So that's like a healthy way to balance it.
Based on everything you've learned over the past few years since you got into tech, what advice would you give to people who are maybe interested, maybe not interested in tech?
Just say yes, like try everything. I think that's been the theme that we've been talking about over the last couple questions especially, but the big thing about tech is like people think that it's not for everyone, but that's like completely false. It's such a broad field that there's so many things to explore and figure out that anyone can be related to tech or doing tech. You don't have to be a software engineer to be interested in tech. You don't have to do something that involves coding all day if that's not something you want to do, but you can still be a part of technology or working in like the tech industry or in computer science overall. It's just really about finding your niche. And I think people, a lot of times it's very cookie cutter where people just try to go into industry, go into big tech and move forward with their lives. But at the same time, when you find your niche and find that spark that drives you, that's when you're really going to find true success, because you won't feel like you're working as much. You'll actually enjoy what you're doing. It won't be soul sucking and it'll be amazing. But the big thing is if you say no to different opportunities, or if you have a passing interest but don't act on it, then you're never going to know what could have been. And I think that's the biggest key takeaway here in terms of just exploring what is out there and finding what's right for you. It's also like a misconception that my manager told me at my last internship, that when people try to think of their perfect job, they usually want it to be like 100% doing things that they love, and that's what their perfect job is going to be. But that's like rarely the case. As long as you're working like 50% of the things you do, if you love like even 25 to 50% of the things you do, and then you're okay with doing 25-ish%, and then you don't like 25% of your job, that's still considered like a really good deal, because a lot of people are, it's rare to even get that. So
Yeah.
not to sound jaded or anything, but it's important to keep that like realism perspective in mind in terms of finding a job you love. Just really being true to yourself. At the end of the day, I think that's like one of the most important things, whether you're in tech, not in tech, whatever anyone decides to do. Just figure out what feels right for you and don't just do things for the sake of doing things or pigeonhole yourself, because a lot of times stereotypes, yeah, they come into play, but it's really hard to break away from them. But you need to be your own person in that sense.
Thank you so much, Sejal, for joining me today on this Zoom call. It was such an inspiring talk, and I really, really enjoyed the conversation that we had today. So thank you so much for taking out time and joining me.
Yeah, definitely. I had a great time just chatting and going over a lot of these things. And to our viewers, thanks for actually sitting through and watching me ramble about so many different things.
Everyone, make sure to go check out Sejal's LinkedIn and Instagram to connect with her. I'll link in the description below. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.
Bye.